Hello and welcome to the July edition of What's Next, the Red Hat Advanced Cluster Security Roadmap Update. I'll be your host. I'm Mike Foster, Community Lead for the StackRox Open Source Project, and I'm joined by all the ACS PMs as they've updated their roadmap to encompass the next year's worth of work. Let's get into it. Now, why is our roadmap public? A roadmap is public because we want to hear from you. Things are always in flux. There are certain customer requirements, open source issues that pop up. And so we want to hear from you. If there's something that is not in this list, let us know. Of course, with every roadmap update, things are subject to change. This is not an exact roadmap of everything that's going to happen in the next year, but it is something so that you know where we want to move forward with and that you can give us feedback on the project. So again, links are in the description below. You can always open a support case, message us on the open source Slack channel, or open an issue in the open source StackRox repository. And a lovely welcome to our ACS product management team. They've helped update the slides, record everything so you have an accurate roadmap of what ACS is doing. Again, any of those issues, emails, concerns, cases that get opened, these are the ones, lovely people that are responding to those. So again, I want to say thank you. And I hope you get used to seeing more of them, again, as our next update will be towards the end of the year or January. Let's kick it off with a little bit of a release recap. We've had 3 major releases since the beginning of the year, starting off with 3.74, and then obviously a major update to ACS 4.0 in May, along with the launch of ACS Cloud Service at Red Hat Summit. And then at the end of June, we recently released ACS 4.1 and look for ACS 4.2 coming in the first couple weeks of September. Now, very similar to our last roadmap update that you can find on YouTube, and again, the link is going to be in the description below, we have our key priorities that we always want to tackle. We are constantly keeping up with industry standards, compliance regulations, and just general innovation in the security space, and we want to continue that trend as we move forward. Also, the launch of Cloud Service allows us to iterate over our changes a lot faster, give you very, very fast vulnerability and Kubernetes security information with quick and easy startup. So look to Duran Caspian for an update a little bit later. We always are talking about portfolio integration, support, how we can work with different cloud providers to give you the information that you need to make sure your clusters are secure. And then lastly, what's going on in the open source space, things like StackRox, KubeLinter, and the Falco project, how we contribute to those, how you can get started, and how those are key contributors to the downstream ACS product. So what's coming for the next year? I'm going to lay out all of the topics we're going to cover, starting with vulnerability management, supply chain security, policy and risk management, security networking and observability, the ACS Cloud Service, the portfolio integration that we have coming in the next year, and of course the open source project. You'll see all the time stamps listed below if you'd like to skip to the thing that you care most about. So let's kick it off with Maria Simone Marcus filling in for Shubha Badvi and talking about vulnerability management and supply chain security.
Vulnerability management remains crucial for our customers. It helps them identify security weaknesses and also mitigate risks. Organizations that proactively access vulnerability information strengthen the security of the software supply chain and also safeguard critical artifacts. At Red Hat, our goal is to provide you a consistent and accurate vulnerability scan result across our products. And with this goal in mind, we are delivering one consolidated ClearV4 scanner across Advanced Cluster Security and Red Hat Quay. This scanner, ClearV4, will adopt OSB.dev, which is a security data language for vulnerabilities, which enhances data quality and accuracy, and also will expand ACS CVE reporting to include Golang CVEs. On top of that, ACS will also offer soon downloadable vulnerability reports that facilitate sharing information about pertinent CVEs towards the rest of your organization for CVE remediation. These reports can also be scoped using collections with this, which is a feature that we already delivered in the past, so that they include the interest of the entities of interest. Regular vulnerability scanning assist in keeping your container images up to date and free of critical vulnerabilities. We have a feature on the roadmap that will assist you in keeping Red Hat published container images up to date to remediate the detected vulnerabilities. This feature will inform you when an updated version of a container image is available in Red Hat Ecosystem Container Catalog and in Red Hat product repositories. To deliver this feature, we will adopt Red Hat product security published vulnerability data in the formats advised by CSAF, which will provide richer vulnerability data and will allow ACS to more accurately interpret the actual impact of the vulnerabilities per product, as well as consume the software bill of materials published by Red Hat Product Security for inventory of software components and dependencies. With ACS, our goal is to provide our customers as much information as possible so that they can effectively prioritize and remediate detected vulnerabilities. With this feature, enrich vulnerability data to facilitate prioritization of CVE remediation, out of all the detected vulnerabilities, we will be able to highlight those which are publicly known to have an exploit code or in fact have been exploited. Software supply chain security remains an attractive target for malicious actors and hence crucial concern for our customers. Software bill of materials has emerged as one of the key building blocks in software supply chain security. Once an SBOM is generated, it's important to map those components to known vulnerabilities, to evaluate how secure the software that is coming in your supply chain as well as the software that is coming out of your supply chain. We plan to add this feature in ACS so that you will be able to import software bill of materials for your software or application in ACS and map to known vulnerabilities and export those results. The second feature related to supply chain security that's on the roadmap is aimed for empowering developers in your organizations to shift security as far left in the software development process as possible. The new feature will let developers scan container images on their desktops by using a central running instance of ACS or either CLI or as part of the developer's IDE. The intention here is that detected vulnerabilities can be remediated before they are pushed to the registry for deployment in production environments. This year, at Red Hat Summit, we announced limited availability of Red Hat Advanced Cluster Security Cloud Service and a service preview of Red Hat Trusted Application Pipeline. As a result of Advanced Cluster Security integration into RTAP, organizations will be able to add a lot of the security gates that we have in ACS as a product, such as, for instance, image scanning for vulnerabilities with OpenShift pipeline tasks, runtime vulnerability scanning and management, assessment for compliance across hundreds of controls, network activity visualization, just to name a few.
Let's talk about policy and risk management. Starting with policy as code. We want to make it easier for you to apply the GitOps approach to managing ACS policies. You can already do that today by exporting policies to JSON, then you can edit them, that becomes your source of truth, you can import them back, but we recognize that needs to be easier. We continue to invest in security policies, we're adding more granular control, for example, pod security context. Actually, you can see some of that on the side panel in the network graph. Linux capabilities for drop all and other controls based on your requirements. With the recent introduction of pod security standards, we're also planning to add a way for you to govern how that's used, make sure the namespaces use that correctly, and overall be able to use ACS as a single pane of glass across Kubernetes policies as you're used to. We're also planning to update our criteria overall and refresh them relative to recent recommendations, for example, the CIS Kube benchmark and OpenShift benchmarks. And on the user experience front, we're making several steps over time. Some of this does take time. We've started to refresh our policy editor UI. It's easier now, better understood. We're going to make additional changes on that. And we want to streamline how you view violations from within policy management so you don't have to flip between these two views. We've talked about how we're going to scale policy management using collections, but more than that, we're planning to split the way you define policies so that there is a pure policy definition, and then there's how you apply that. And how you apply that is going to use collections so that you can define an area and once and use it multiple times. And overall, and again, this will take a little time, but we recognize that violations management needs to look more like vulnerability management with reporting, deferral workflows, and so forth. And then for deployment risk that a lot of people are already using, but we recognize again that you want to have better visibility into how that risk is calculated and be able to customize that risk according to your specific risk factors. And speaking of collections, they were introduced in vulnerability reporting, but we plan to add them more and more in other areas of the product, not only in policy scopes, but also what if you could use a collection to filter your violations? You've already defined that focus area that you're interested in. You just use a collection and view that focus area. Or in the network graph, same idea. So you'll see them come in more and more places. And here's a topic that we think you're going to like because some of you have already told us you want this. And that is be able to look at the network graph as a topology tool, not only show networking information, but actually show more security information on that visual view. So this becomes like a heat map for you. For example, if you can filter vulnerabilities by a particular CVE, you can immediately see which deployments are impacted visually on your graph, and you can apply other filters that you're interested in at the same time. Same thought goes for violations. Focus on a particular policy category and find out which namespaces have more issues than others. Start talking to that team first. And risk, again, focus on high risk and you can visually see where that's coming from, and so forth. And to finish off with our shift left for network policies, that's a really exciting feature that we've already shipped. It's in technology preview, plans to go GA. What this can already do today, look at YAML source code, just your YAML definitions of all your deployments, and automatically generate network policies for you. Today, it can analyze, create the network policies, and then also produce a visual representation of the connectivity map, which you can see as text, JSON, CV, or a DOT format, which is a graphical representation. Next, we're planning to also add a capability to view different versions. So it's not easy to look at a YAML file and understand what's changed. We're going to help you visualize differences between two versions of your network policies.
In ACS, we keep investing to provide you a better security and observability story and provide you with the tools to help you enforce the right controls. So in the area of observability, we are investing, providing more granularity on the external identities on the network graph. This is so that you're able to identify very quickly if a connection that is coming in or out of your cluster is a risky one. Currently, there is a way to get around this with CIDR blocks and manually configuring those, but we are aware that sometimes it's quite tricky to know specifically which IP ranges to define. So we want to have the ability to see what are the destination and source IP addresses for the connections that are coming in and out of an external identity. And with this information together with the information that we already know, which are the port and the network protocol, provide you with the insights so that you are able to understand whether that connection is something that it is risky or not. Now, in the area of networking, we want to make it easy for you to generate Kubernetes network policies as well. Currently, there is already a feature which allows you to generate Kubernetes network policies on a cluster level based on traffic. But sometimes it's handy to have such functionality for a given scope. Like for example, if you want to have specific network policies defined for all the deployments within a namespace. So we are planning to have that functionality ready for you so that in addition to getting the network policies for a cluster, you are also able to scope them for whatever you need specifically. In addition, we will also enhance the network graph capabilities so that the users can see what will be the impact of a network policy being applied. And we want to do so that you are able to gain trust and confidence that these network policies need to be applied and apply them as soon as possible. Another feature that we are investing in that comes handy are networking guardrails in general. So our goal is to be able to have ACS policies to govern as well networking aspects, so that you can set up guardrails that either enforce or allow you to be informed if your networking guardrails aren't followed. And just for example, there are a couple of things that we envision. We want, for instance, ACS to fully integrate with admin network policy API, which is being developed by Kubernetes and will be beta by the end of 2023. This new API allows cluster admins to enforce network policies holistically across the cluster. So it's a way to define network policies on a higher hierarchy to regular network policies. That new functionality that will be released by Kubernetes, we would like to integrate that in ACS so you are also able to use it through our tool. And we also want to provide an automatic way to check if when a network policy is being generated through ACS, whether it is following the guardrails that have been defined. And if they are not following those, then we would propose to modify those policies on the go, those network policies, so that the network policy that is resulting out of ACS, which could be coming from either a build time network policy or a traffic scene network policy, will be compliant just by default to the organization guidelines. And now let's talk about supportability. In ACS, we want to be able to run ACS on as many platforms as possible, and there are several initiatives that we are doing to drive this. The most revolutionary one is what's called Core BPF. Core BPF stands from Compile Once, Run Everywhere. And this is a new collection method which we have already tech previewed in 4.1, but we are planning to GA soon, and we will also make it the default because it has many perks for its users. So to start with, the first perk would be that it allows you to run a secure cluster on a wider set of Linux operating system kernels. Before, if you were planning to use a specific Kubernetes distribution, which was running on a specific kernel, you needed to ensure that that kernel probe was part of what we call the support package. And if it wasn't, then it was not possible to run the secure cluster on it. But now with Core BPF, the same probe can be used for multiple kernel families, and that allows you to run ACS secure cluster in a much wider set of kernel operating systems and Kubernetes distributions. Secondly, it also allows you to upgrade between releases much faster. And this is specifically important for offline customers, which had to download the support package manually every time. And now it's not needed anymore because that specific probe is already there and no manual action is needed. Then continuing the trend of support, we want to also expand ACS secure clusters on ARM architectures. ARM is currently already supported in OpenShift and ACM, and we want ACS to continue doing so, and we will start with the secure clusters. And we're also trying to expand the central instance running on IBM C. And for customers that are running on resource constrained environments, like for example Edge, we want to be able to have a specific secure cluster profile for them so that they can benefit from the security features of ACS without having an impact on performance.
Hi, my name is Doron Caspian and I'm product manager for ACS Cloud and Compliance. And I will cover compliance and cloud service roadmap. Let's start with compliance. In the next few months, we're going to introduce a new profile, a new compliance profile that include DISA-STIG and CIS 1.4 benchmark for OpenShift. We also going to expand the compliance experience in ACS. You will be able to configure, schedule, and run compliance operator infrastructure, and also review, remediate, and export compliance operator scanning result through ACS. You will be able to build your tailored profile for your need and also review results over time and use trending. For cloud service, we launched cloud service in May this year, 2023, that now available in both North America and Europe. You are able to secure any Kubernetes cluster, including EKS, AKS, GKE, ROSA, and ARO, and also on-premise OCP. This product is fully supported by Red Hat, and we provide 99.95 SLA and 24/7 support. The product is available on AWS Marketplace and allow you to connect to a local registry and scan your registries. Later this year, we're going to provide the general availability so everyone will be able to buy it, and we will provide a 60-day trial and provide a capability to send an email and notification to your email directly from the product without additional configuration. Next year, we're going to expand to additional regions, including APAC. We're going to expand our offering to Azure Marketplace and align the product with industry standards like ISO and PCI DSS. Thank you for your patience, Doron.
Hi, my name is Anjali Telang. I am a product manager for ACS as well as OpenShift. So in this slide, I want to present to you our roadmap for authentication and authorization enhancements. In our recent 4.1 release, we introduced a way to declaratively configure ACS authentication authorization resources using YAML files that can be easily mounted into ACS Central as config maps. In our upcoming release, we plan to make this functionality available for our ACS Cloud admins for faster provisioning of resources in ACS Cloud. Next, we're looking to enhance the RBAC permissions to allow for namespace scoped access. Many of our customers have requested that users that have namespace scoped access in Kubernetes or project scoped access in OpenShift be allowed to only view and update ACS resources for their designated namespaces. This effort will be to provide scoped permissions to resources and workflows commonly used by namespace admins, such as policy management or network graph views. Finally, we look to closely align ACS RBAC with OpenShift and Kubernetes RBAC. With this feature, we want to help OpenShift and Kubernetes administrators easily bring in users already configured on their platform into ACS. We look to provide a direct mapping of RBAC permissions from secured clusters into ACS. This hugely helps in reducing manual addition of users and helps with better adoption and usage of our platform. In this slide, I would like to highlight some of the improvements we have planned for internal certificate management in ACS that are used for service-to-service communication between internal components. Each ACS component uses X509 certificate to authenticate itself to other components using MTLS. One of the key requirements from our customers with regulatory and compliance needs is an ability to seamlessly manage and auto-rotate these certificates before they expire. Manually rotating certificates is painful, especially when there is a large installation with several secured clusters. With this feature, we will provide seamless auto rotation of certificates and propagation of trust between central and secured clusters. We believe in continually bringing in new capabilities into ACS, and our efforts of integration with Serverless Guard is another step in that direction. We are looking to expand ACS capabilities to provide support for securing microservices. Serverless Guard is an open source project that is integrated in Knative and will be available with OpenShift Serverless in an upcoming release. Serverless Guard helps secure microservices, serverless containers, as well as serverless functions. This integration helps customers manage microservices security from a single pane of glass with ACS dashboards. With the integration, Guard will propagate all alerts originating from Guard gates to the ACS sensor in each cluster. Each alert will then be associated with the correct deployment and propagated to ACS Central. The ACS user will be able to view the alerts of the microservices in the dashboard and will be able to enforce Guard rules with ACS policies. Now over to Maria for the next set of updates. Thank you.
And now finally, let's talk about the various open source projects we are involved in. StackRox is the upstream open source project for ACS. We open sourced this already last year, and it's an open solution for Kube-native security, and we welcome your contributions to this project. KubeLinter is another open source project today. It allows you to analyze YAML files and Helm charts. It checks them against a variety of best practices with the focus on security and production readiness. And we will also work on expanding the scope of KubeLinter to scan operators. Claire is the open source project for static analysis of vulnerabilities. As is mentioned before, Claire is the scanner that's used in ACS as well as Red Hat Quay. Both teams contribute to this project and will continue to do so. They are, for instance, expanding languages such as, for instance, Java, Go, Python, Node.js, Ruby, and ASP.NET. Expanding operating systems, RHEL, Ubuntu, Debian, Alpine, Amazon Linux, and also adopting OSB.deb security data language for vulnerabilities for improved accuracy. Lastly, Falco is the CNCF open source project for cloud native runtime security. ACS makes contributions to Falco from ACS codebase to be able to continue supporting the runtime features as well.
And that's all, folks. I want to once again thank the PMs for the roadmap update. Tune in later this year or early in January next year for our next ACS roadmap update. Until then, open up a support case, leave us a comment in the Slack channel. That's the StackRox Slack channel. Or, of course, you can open up a GitHub issue on the open source StackRox repository to get feedback from the engineers and the PMs. I'm Mike Foster, community lead at StackRox. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you soon.